everybody. Tonight we're going to be doing a Fireman Tumbler, and we'll be using alcohol inks in doing this tumbler, and I'll give you the colors that I'll be using and the technique that I'll be using. And I'm going to turn you down and go over some of the things with you about how we're going to do it. This will be on it'll be saved, so it can be a replay. So if you miss some of it, you can go back and pick up on the colors that we used. And I'm going to get you pulled up on my computer so maybe I can see what's going on with it. Give me just a minute. Take Joe, here we go. Now let me do one more thing, and if I don't answer any of your questions in the comments, hey Andrea, if I don't answer any of your comments on the live, I will go back either tonight or sometime tomorrow and answer any questions that you have. And this is a 40-ounce tumbler that we'll be working on tonight, and it does have coral paint on it. And I did tape off the top, and I did tape off the bottom. And the first thing that we're going to do, we'll be putting epoxy on it before we put the inks on. And again tonight, I do have my little card, and I'll have all the different colors of ink that I used. And we're going to use tonight, we'll be mixing up 1 tablespoon of A and 1 tablespoon of B. So we'll get that going, and maybe I can see some. Hey Becca, I'm glad you finally caught me live. Okay, let me do my B first. I always like to put it in first. And doing this tumbler, you do like to have a good bit of epoxy on it because you want the inks to move. And then tomorrow night, I'll go in and put the decals on it and put a coat of epoxy on, and then film it so that you can see what the finished product looks like with the epoxy on it. I'm sorry, with the decals on it. Now I do use this same technique. I do a Gone with the Wind tumbler, and I use this technique for it. And around the bottom where I put a silhouette on the Fireman's tumbler with firemen and burnt trees and that kind of thing. On the one that I do for the Gone with the Wind, I put a silhouette of the house after the fire, and it makes it really, really nice. And I've done several different photos and several different quotes on the Gone with the Wind that people had requested. And it has always been a good seller for me. But this cup is easy to do, and the process is easy. And I think if you've not done one, you'll enjoy it. And I'm going to set my timer on 4 minutes. This one I will not put any of the casting craft dye in it. I usually put just a little bit of the blue dye in here, but I won't be doing that tonight because we're going to have alcohol inks in it that are all colors, so we won't be putting that in tonight. Get my epoxy over there out of the way. And always, when you're stirring your epoxy, scrape the sides real good. And I always wear an apron. I learned I've messed up so many tops and jeans that it's worth your money to invest in an apron. So I have 2 or 3 aprons. I try to keep one nice so that at least when I go live I look a little bit presentable with a clean apron. But it's worth your while to invest in an apron. And when you're doing alcohol ink, you'll save your hands if you use gloves because the ink is hard to get off. And I've never used alcohol ink that I did not get it on me if I don't wear gloves. And I always wear gloves when I'm painting, and a long sleeve shirt. I've learned to do that because my wrist would get paint on them. But y'all be sure and come in and tell me what we're doing. The color of the tumbler, Carol, is coral. It's painted with coral. Thank you. Yeah, I like a blue nail. I love blue, but I don't have the guts to do all of them in blue, so I do one. So I have a blue nail all the time. I've told my husband I'm going to do this white hair blue, but that didn't go over too well. If I was younger, I might do that. Yeah. Okay, before you put your epoxy, can you show me how you are? Oh, let me go back up. It jumped. Show me. I'm sorry. It's jumping every time somebody posts something. Oh, yes, I can show you how my spinner's holding my cup. I have 2 spinners that we made out of barbecue grill motors, rotisserie motors, and I have one that I purchased that had a motor on it. And then this one is one that I got from Rick, the owner of this page that we're doing the live on. And then I have a 6-cup turner. So I've had to go in, and every time I get one, I want to make sure that all of my arms that I use are compatible. So if I need to switch it from one turner to the big turner or whatever, I can. So I make sure. Now the one I got from Rick, I did have to put an adapter on it because the way mine are, they actually screw into the turner, and the way he had it, the turner screwed into the arm. So I had to I ran to the hardware store and got an adapter for that, and it was an easy fix. Okay, there we go. That's our 4 minutes. And remember, I said I always, when I do my turners, my epoxy, I always mix for a large cup, 4 minutes. Let me get this off and I'll show you how I got it on here. Okay, this is the cup, and it has the arm on it, and then this is the football. It's the large football. And I never do a cup that I don't push the footballs all the way in it. If I'm doing a cup and some of the football sticks out around the top, I go in and trim it and use that cup, that football, all the time for that style cup, because I don't want any epoxy getting on my footballs. And that's the reason I do that. But this is a 40 ounce, and that large football pushed all the way in there. I've never had a problem. Now my footballs, I glue them to the arms with Gorilla Glue. I don't just push them up on there because I found that it's too easy for them to come off your turner. So, let's see. Here's another one. You can see in here where I cut a hole in it, and I put the Gorilla Glue down in there because these are very expensive to go to the hardware store, and they'll cut them for you there. And I always glue mine in there because I don't want to risk them coming off and falling off the turner because of that. I've seen a lot of people that use the black foam, and it's real easy for your cups to come off of the turner. So that's what I did, and how I do mine, and how I get them in there and get them to stay. Okay, let's get a glove on. open up my mat. Okay. And I think I'm going to heat my epoxy just a little bit because it's got lots of bubbles because I stirred it really, really hard. And usually the alcohol ink will pretty well take care of the bubbles if you have any anyway. So I think the whole cup's in there now. And we'll get this turning. And like I said, you'll want to use a pretty good bit of epoxy for this cup. And this one I said is a 40-ounce cup. Most guys that work all day, firemen, policemen, state patrols, construction workers, linemen, well, anybody that's on the road and they work a lot, long hours, they like a bigger cup. That way they can take more with them and not have to refill it as often. And I sell a lot of 40-ounce at Christmas time especially. And this cup, when you're painting your cup with the coral, you prep it like you always prep a cup, and then put your paint on it. And the paint doesn't have to be perfect because you are going to be covering it up with alcohol ink. Make sure you get it up around the top. I tape my top and bottom off. Everybody doesn't do that, but if you don't, just make sure. I still do it the same way if I don't tape the top. I have a few customers that don't want the top done, but I pretty much insist on doing the bottom because it protects the cup in case it's dropped, and it helps to keep it from cracking. But even if I take it all the way to the top, I always take my hand over and rake it over the top like that, so it'll go in and get a good seal, and then I trim it with X-Acto knife. And we're just going to put a little on there like this so we can make sure it's going to move good. Okay. Set that out of the way. And we're going to let it turn just a little bit. And while it's turning, I'll go over the different colors of ink that I'm going to be using. I will start out with red pepper, and these are Tim Holtz. I'll be starting out with the red pepper, and then I'll be using some sunset orange, and I'll be using some sunshine yellow, and I'll be using a little bit of teak wood. And I do have a watermelon here. I don't know that I will use it, but I set it out just in case I needed it. We're going to let that turn just a little bit and get all that moving. And like I said, always wear gloves when you're doing alcohol ink. And the gloves I wear, this is one that I wear. I'll use them over and over and over with alcohol inks. But tonight I wanted it to be pretty so they would match. So I've got two purple ones that I'll be using. So both hands will match. How much epoxy did I use? I use 1 tablespoon of A and 1 tablespoon of B. And mix them together. And I put all of it on there except just a little bit. You can see there's just a little bit in the bottom of the cup. And I always, like I've told you, I always like to keep a little bit out just in case something starts repelling, and I can put it on there and it helps if it repels. Okay. Now, when I do this, I'll be turning the cup turner up and down, because when I put my ink on there, I want it to run down. So I'll put just a drop on there. It's sometimes hard to get it to drop out. With another color. Now I'll put some of the orange on there. And after I get it all in there, then I'll be turning it up the other way. Now we'll do some of the yellow. This is Sunshine Yellow. And I hadn't decided what decal I'm going to put on it yet. I'll surprise y'all tomorrow when I post it. And now when I go to use the teak wood, you have to be pretty careful with the teak wood because it's like black. It will take over before you know it. And I've got my computer sitting right here to my right, so I covered it with wax paper. Now this is the, picked up the wrong one. This is the teak wood. Like I said, be very careful with it because you don't want a whole lot of this to begin with. And I found these bottles, some of them, man, will it ever just go everywhere. And I'm going to roll up my mat. And we're going to turn the turner up the other way. Move that over out of the way. We'll turn it up this way. I don't think you can see it really good, but I've just got it turned almost upside down. Do it that way for several seconds. And back down the other way. And then I'm going to put my heat gun on it, but I'm going to use a cool setting to sort of just make it go the way I want it to go, which is more up and down like flames rather than around and around. if you've made a fireman's cut before, just put a note and let me know that you have. Now I'm going to put a little bit of heat on it. Getting the teak wood spread out, and then we'll go back in a few minutes and we'll put a little bit more of the red on there. And this is one that you'll have to work with around the rim because it sort of wants to line up around the rim, and you don't want just a circle around your rim of teak wood or black or whatever darker color that you're using. You want it to spread out. Okay, we've got it moving now. Now I'm going to go back in, and these places that's the coral is still showing, I'm going to go in and drop some color on that. And then we'll move it around again in a little bit. Now I'm going to use some more of the orange sunset. Now we're going to go back with a little bit more of the yellow. Now we're going to turn it down again just a little bit while it is where we did the heat on it. It's moving a little bit more now, so. Okay, and you can see there's a few places where you can tell that it's repelling a little bit. So let me get my epoxy. Let me see if I can show you the places so you can see it. There's one coming around right here, right there. I don't know if the light's where you can see it. Let's see if we can get some better light. See if that will help. But right there. And anywhere it's doing that, I just put some epoxy on it. And there's not many places that it's done that, so that's good. But using the alcohol inks is very forgiving because you can go back in and the next time when you actually put your final coat of epoxy on, after you've put your decals on, you can make some corrections. But of course, if you've got to make a correction where the decal is, then you don't want to work with it that way. And if you'll notice, when you drop it on there after you've already been working with it, it does make a distinct look that sometimes you'll have to work with. Now I'm going to go back in with the heat gun again. Touch up. And right there comes a place. Let me get that where the, you can tell the epoxy is repelling a little bit. Right there. And you can see where I put that on there and a little bit of it dripped. It made sort of a, it's coming around now. See that sort of white line right there? Have to go back in and work on that a little bit. And right in here it's trying to make a line where the cup gets bigger at the top. And you want to work on that a little bit because you don't want that line in there. Now I'm just working on the line around the top because I don't want it to have either a red line or a dark line around the top. And you don't want one around the bottom either. And when you work with it, you can sort of tell where you need to move it a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to let it turn just a minute and then we'll pull the tape on it. I'll be putting the tops on my ink. Well, I see one spot I need to put, when it comes around I'll show it to you. Right in here you can see a little bit more of the coral showing that I want to show. So I'm going to put a little bit more red on it when it comes around. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to save my gloves. The ones I paint with I use over and over, and the ones that I do alcohol ink with I use over and over. Because as we know, gloves are hard to come by, and so is alcohol. I hadn't had any problem getting, oh gosh, acetone. But I have had a problem trying to find alcohol and trying to find gloves. Now there's a spot coming around. Let me get me a, since I took my gloves off, I'm going to wrap this with this so I won't get it on me. But if you'll look, there's some spots showing up right in here. There's one where it's repelling. There's one. Don't want just little white dots on it. Okay. Okay. And you can see just holding that, see all that ink that got on it? If I had not put that around it, it would be on my hands. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull the tape. Whoop. Started going the wrong way. Now where the tape crossed, you can see a spot on it where the paint and the epoxy got on there, but I'll clean that up with an X-Acto knife. It'll come right off. And this spot down here, see how it's still trying to pull away? I'm going to put a little bit more on it because I don't want it doing that. Okay, now I'm going to pull the tape off the bottom. And I think that bottom's got a lot. I'm putting the glove back on. Man, that just get everywhere. Okay. And we'll wipe that off. There's a little tiny piece of paint there that we'll get off with an X-Acto knife where it overlapped and the paint fled just a little bit onto the silver. But that's it. I think that was going to turn out really nice, especially when we get the decals on it. If you've got any questions, like I said, I'll go back. I see there are some there. I'll go back in and I'll answer them after I get offline. I don't like to take up your time just talking, but put any questions in there that you have, and I will go back and answer them tonight. We're getting through a little bit early tonight. It only took about, it's about 9:32, so we got that one nipped in the bud pretty quick. And in the morning, it'll be ready for me to take off the turner. I let mine turn all night, and I'll take it off the turner, and then tomorrow when I come in from work, I'll put the decals on it. I work Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I'll be working tomorrow, and then I'll work on it when I get home, and then I'll show you the finished product either tomorrow night or first thing Wednesday morning. So I'm glad all of you tuned in, and I appreciate you being here, and we will look at the finished product, and I will answer any questions you got. So y'all have a blessed evening, and thank you for joining.